This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
And welcome to the program. I'm Roby Brock. He's got nearly 13 months under his belt as the 2nd District Congressman from Arkansas. I'm joined by Representative French Hill. Welcome and thanks for being here.
Thanks, Roby. Thanks for the invite.
You enjoying your time off, your week off?
Well, we had a snow day.
Yeah.
I think everyone should feel
You got
safer.
a snow week.
Snow week. I think everyone should feel safer that the House adjourned for the snow.
There should be more of those. I think that there's a pretty good contingency out there. So your first year in office, I mean, you got a whole year, you got 13 months under your belt. What's been your biggest surprise? That maybe something you didn't anticipate being congressman?
Biggest surprise is the time management challenge when you've got members who come and go from Washington every week, and you're trying to do a full week's worth of work in about 3.5 or 4 days, and so the time pressure is intense.
Now you've had some leadership changes up there, as you may recall, over the last year. So Speaker Ryan, how is he different than Speaker Boehner? What's significantly different about the course of business in Congress now?
One, Ryan is all business and not...
Boehner wasn't all business?
I think Boehner was more of a political leader. He took a political approach to things. He was a little bit laid back about the whole process. And I think of Paul Ryan as more studied, more committed. He's, I think, very good on television, a good communicator. And he's the first policy-oriented speaker I think we've had since Newt Gingrich back in the 1990s.
You have told me before that Speaker Ryan also does a little bit more, works a little bit more with the committee leadership in a way that Speaker Boehner didn't. Maybe help me understand how that is different. So
I think people would say top-down would be Boehner's style. Here's an issue coming up, here's what I think we ought to do. Ryan's style is more bottom-up from the committees. He's forming having committee chairman meetings and talking about issues that are forthcoming and how they think the Congress should tackle them. And that's a very different style.
Give me a little bit of background in that, because I haven't been in these closed-door meetings like you have, in terms of how that impacts members differently and how that helps produce a different result. Can it produce a different result?
I think it can produce a different result. I think the proof will be in the pudding this year as we watch him work. But in the case of concerns about terrorism inside the United States post-San Bernardino, Ryan took action that very weekend by getting the committee chairman of interest, like intelligence, defense, finance, saying, what bills have you marked up in your committee? What bills have you worked on that directly addresses this issue of terrorists in the country from an immigration point of view or a financing point of view? Let's bring them forward. And that's very different, I think, than the past leadership of the House. So I think he's going to look to his committee chairman for how to solve policy issues and get the best ideas out of all the members of Congress and bring them forward. So I'm encouraged by that.
Now, one of the reasons that Boehner resigned was there is an element of the Republican caucus that is much more conservative than some of the establishment or moderate Republicans. How are they adjusting to the new leadership from your perspective? And heck, you may be one of them. I don't think that you are, but you know.
Well, number one, I think Ryan, having been a committee chairman and never been in leadership before, he thinks like a member, a normal committee member. So what I've seen him do is reach out to all the members of Congress. There are 240 plus Republicans, and he is working with all of them, no matter what their predilection is on policy issues, and getting their needs, their wants, where do they want to go. And that outreach is what I think makes Paul Ryan a good leader, and I think he's got promise, because he, I think, tries to address all the concerns of the members of his conference, and then what's in the realm of possible in trying to negotiate or dealing with the opposition party.
The snow week has postponed a vote to override the veto of the Obamacare repeal that the House and Senate passed, that President Obama repealed. The votes aren't there if you look at all sides in terms of the nose counting. Why go through with the vote? Is it just a symbolic gesture at this point, and isn't that a waste of time?
No, I don't think it's a waste of time. Paul Ryan, as Budget Committee Chairman, got the House and the Senate committed to doing a budget resolution in FY15 and FY16. And when you're able to do a budget resolution between the House and the Senate, you're allowed to use reconciliation to change spending priorities without risk of a filibuster in the Senate. So this was the first bill that repeals the core features of Obamacare and sends it to the president's desk and let him veto it. So a lot of members in both the House and Senate have talked about they want to change Obamacare. This is the actual first bill that's reached the president's desk to do that. So I think people felt like they were fulfilling a commitment to do that, and then tease up the discussion about, well, how do you replace Obamacare? How do you have that policy discussion? So
will we see that policy discussion this year?
I think we could. I think Paul is in a good position to do it. I say that because back at the time of the debate on the original Affordable Care Act, one member of Congress took the debate to the president of the famous Blair House debate about the future of health policy. And it was Paul Ryan at that time involved in the Budget Committee. And he did, I think, a good job talking about what were the alternatives to the Affordable Care Act. I've put that talk out on my Facebook page because I think it's an example that Paul Ryan is a good person to lead for the Republicans this health care debate policy going forward. What should we do in the future?
We've got about 30 seconds left. You've caught some flack for your vote on the budget bill before you guys left for the holiday break, particularly from conservative members of conservative voters here in Arkansas. How have you defended that on the campaign trail? Because you are out there with a primary and a general election opponent.
Right. Well, I think the process is broken. We talked about that on a previous show, that we should do the power of the purse by passing all the appropriations bills in the House and the Senate. We did our part, the Senate did not, which produced this appropriations measure. But as I've told you before, my main reason for supporting it is it funds the national security interest and homeland security interest of our country. And we're at war right now, and I believe that we should not in any way curtail the funding for our critical national security issues. And there were some good economic policy positions in the bill as well. And that caused me to be a yes vote.
Got to end it there. Congressman French Hill, thank you so much as always. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right.